Good evening. I know our clock here in the conference room is a little bit off, but I'm hearing and I'm seeing on my phone that it is 7 o'clock. And so...
sheet up there so
okay.
people can put them in.
Okay, so I think we're ready to start the meeting. So with that, Mr. Kruzak, would you lead us in the pledge? Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I want to call the meeting to order, and the meeting was called for one specific issue, and that is to discuss, we wanted to give Ms. Lima a chance to address the board, and so we'll be doing that this evening. So anyways, I'd like to ask for approval of the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'll support. Support. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, I'd like to open the floor for citizen comment, and we don't have to go in any particular order, so whoever would like to make comment first. You're welcome.
Let them know I put those papers out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yancho. Good evening.
Good evening, board, and Mr. Supervisor, and Mr. Superintendent, and attorney. My name is Mike Yancho Sr. I currently live at 10640 Halsey Road. Lived there since 1987. Previous to that, I lived, and my family still owns, the property at 4357 East Baldwin Road in Grand Blanc. I have some concerns about what's going on in our township, and I know I sent a letter through the clerk, and you all received it in your packet, I believe. But I want to read a few things to you before I get into my ad-lib statements. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a superintendent is a person who is in charge of work done and who manages the employees in a particular office, department, or area. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a superintendent is one who has executive oversight and charge. We also have some information that's available to everyone on the internet that is from the Michigan Charter Township Act of 359 of 1947. And it reads, Article 42.10, the Township Superintendent, appointment, delegation of powers, and duties of Township Supervisor to assume all the duties and responsibilities as Personnel Director of all Township employees or delegate such duties to other officer or employees. And from the Grand Blanc Township website, under the definition of the superintendent and his duties, under council manager government qualifications and performance, and not skillful navigation of political election process, are the criteria the elected body uses to select a professional manager. Period. The professional manager, in turn, uses his or her education, experience, and training to select department heads and other key managers to oversee the efficient delivery of service. In this way, council manager government maintains critical checks and balances to ensure accountability at the township hall. I think that we and some members of this board may be in violation of those definitions and of the laws governing and our township's mission statement as is indicated on our website. I've lived in this township since 1963. I was just a kid. And I've been coming to township meetings for a long, long time. Probably the only one that remembers how long I've been coming to meetings is Kathy Lane. But from probably my 30s, I've been coming to these meetings, and I've watched the township grow. Under the supervisor system of government, we did okay for a long time. But we've grown. And we have lots of aspects. We've grown in employees, we've grown in employment, we've grown in population. Our superintendent, when we changed over to a government form of superintendent, that was one of the best things this township has ever done. And now we have an excellent superintendent, and some members of this board are trying to usurp the powers that he's entitled to by definition and by charter. And I hope everybody on this board can get back on track and perform their duties according to those definitions and charters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henschel.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes. And if you could state your name and address for the record. I know we have a sheet over here for people if they wanted to put their name and address on it, but
Okay.
you can also give it verbally.
Craig Bonasic, 2469 Green Acres, Grand Blanc Township. I just wanted to address the board real quick about Parks and Rec, and while I'm speaking as an individual, I'll just say that I've served the last 2 years on the Grand Blanc Little League board, and we have around 450 to 500 individuals, children who play, plus you can do the parents out. So we probably touch about 1,500 folks, and then grandparents too, you extend those out. So, all I can say is the Parks and Rec for the last 2 years has worked with us very, very well. We've had a good relationship with them. We're very dependent upon them to help us with our programs. We're an all-volunteer organization, but we depend on their maintenance of the parks, helping us schedule, helping us do a lot of things, and they have worked with us very well. And I would just say we're literally 3 or 4 weeks out from tryouts, and we're only a couple months from the first start of practices, and continuity is going to be really important. And to even think about starting over with anybody new, I think is a big mistake. If you do that, it's going to throw a lot of things into chaos. So I would say exercise a ton of caution before you make any quick moves. I think it would be much more prudent for this board to keep status quo as much as absolutely possible, and then maybe 6 months, a year from now, after you've had a chance to evaluate how things are going, make some decisions, but don't do it now. I think you're gonna put a lot of programs at risk, and we really have had pretty good service from them all along. And while I'm speaking for myself, I've heard the same comments from my fellow board members. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Mr. Hester. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Brad Hester, 6084 Stockbridge Commons Trail. I'm just going to recommend and that we offer Senya a fair and permanent contract. We have the daddy-daughter dance coming up in a day or so. We're also right at the point where we're going to do all our summer programming, all the hiring and coordination of these groups have been done by Senya in the past, and to hire a director and not have someone there that she can rely on, or he or she can rely on to run the programs that we have is, in my opinion, a mistake. So I am going to say that Senya's done this job and done it exceptionally well over the past couple of years, even when she was serving as an intern for the Parks and Rec Commission. And I hope that you will reward her justly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make a comment? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Bill Janetsky. I live at 9035 Creekview Court in Grand Blanc Township. I'm just here to state my support for Senya. I have 4 children under the age of 7, and those who are old enough are active in the Parks and Rec, doing sports and such. And I've introduced myself to her, and I've introduced all my children. And every time she comes up to us, she plays ball with all my children, does everything. She does her job extremely well. Just here to support her. Please give her a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make public comment? Yes, Mr. Tubbs.
Jim Tubbs, 12543 Greenhill Drive, Grand Blanc. Relatively new to the area. I didn't get out here till 1957. And I've been here long enough that I can even remember and witnessed when Kathy Lane first ran for office.
They don't want to hear history, Jim.
We'll never go back in history, you got it. But my purpose in being here, and I very much agree with what Mike Iancio said. I am presently serving on the DDA board, and we've had that going for approximately a year. I've got to know both Scott and Dennis very well. I have seen and been involved with many developments and own a fair amount of properties in Grand Blanc Township in the area. We're involved in a one down on Baldwin Road now that you're all familiar with, the Tech Village, which I'm one of the owners. But I've been lucky enough to work with Dennis through this project. He basically dusted that thing off. It was on the shelf since 2010. And put this back together, and I've done a lot of work all over the country with different municipalities, and I've never seen anything more professional in my life. And we have been very, very fortunate to get Dennis, and we need to retain him. And I think it's very, very important that we recognize the superintendent's duties and not interfere with his work. He's a very critical piece of this. And over the years, and like I said, I've done many projects in this township, and we've never had a better group than we've got right now. And that includes you people. You know, I think that everybody is dedicated and want to make it right, but we've got to keep the pieces in place that we have now. And with Dennis and Scott, they're the ones that steer the ship. And we have to maintain that posture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tubbs. Anyone else care to make public comment? Anyone else? Anyone on my left? Okay, we're going to close public comment then and bring it up to the table. And Mr. Thomas?
Owning a small business, the most important thing to us, small family business, the most important thing to us is customers. You know, it's very, very important that we do this and we get it right one time. I've always been a fan of the Parks and Rec, as most of you know. I'm an old Boy Scout camp rat that thinks that the youth is our futures, and we have to do everything and put every possible benefits to the Parks and Rec. And they deserve all the accolades that they receive. I'm really proud of the way Mr. Hester has stirred that ship during this changeover of ownership of the Parks and Rec. And I think you deserve a hand, Brad. You spent a lot of time, volunteer time, and personally, I really do appreciate it because I know how hard it was how hard it's been for you. But with every great commander of a ship, you have to have the support staff. And our support staff, the ones that have gone through and tried to make this thing the best and the most seamless transition, has done a terrific job. You know, Chris, Hester, and Jerry, and Sanja. I mean, you guys have done a really, really remarkable job for what you had to deal with, and I'm really proud to call you friends. I mean, I really am. But you have to take care of the customer first. You know, I've made some phone calls over the weekend and spoken to a lot of citizens, and they're absolutely, totally impressed with you, Sanja. They really are. I mean, and for somebody coming out of school, even though you did an internship, this is a big job. This is a very, 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 very big job. And you know that there's room to grow in what you've been doing. But the thing that impresses me is that you've really gone above and beyond. You've set goals for yourself, and I'm glad that you're a member of our team. Secondly, you know, our employees have come to my store and tell me accolades, not just recently. This has been going on November, really this summer. You know, we did have an issue with our last, not exactly the last, but we've always had issues with our program directors. And you would run into numerous scheduling problems where one Little League team was scheduled for Field A, another one was scheduled for Field B, and then the same one's scheduled for Field A, and it was just a real scheduling mess. And they did not facilitate the programs. They weren't there. They weren't hands-on. They weren't there to deal with the mess on the weekends. You know, when a program director, that's 24/7, folks. It really is. A good program director not only has good support staff under them, but they're also going to be at the facility when this is going on. And then they take ownership of it. You know, it's one thing to put it on paper, but if you don't put it and own ownership of it, that's totally different. Well, that person was always tasked with excuses, but no solutions. And the complaints that I've read recently in the last 18 months, very few, where we went from hundreds to a few. Well, what's changed? Well, Ms. Limita came into the picture. Granted, she had a lot of rope because the director, the deputy assistant director, they were dealing with other situations. So they let program sit on the back burner, but Sanja took it upon herself and facilitated the programs and started, unbelievably, she started new programs. For instance, her and our Megan Gilman, who works directly under Superintendent Limita, have put on the tree lighting ceremony for the last 2 years. And started that. We didn't have that. None of us came up with the idea. It was her. And that's really impressive. You know, the way that you've been evaluated, your evaluations have been spot on. And, you know, for somebody with the challenging that you've had and not had the hands-on education from your above supervisors and taking it upon yourself, I'm very impressed. And I know a lot of our board members are very impressed. I like the way that you've actually followed up with the problems. I like the way that you deal with our customers, our residents. And our residents and our customers feel very welcomed to come and to sit down and speak with you and the way that you treat the children. Like I said, I'm an old Boy Scout camp rat that did it for half my life, and I couldn't do what you did at your age and your experience. I just couldn't. And you've really, my hat's off to you. And it'd be my pleasure to make a motion that we offer you the full-time position as Assistant Director and Program Director / at a starting wage of $55,000. I think you deserve it, and it's my pleasure to make that motion.
I'll support it. At this time, thank you, Mr. Thomas, and I agree with what you've said. The reason for this meeting is that Ms. Limata actually sent me correspondence asking to speak with the board, and I would like to give her that opportunity to do that. And I want to ask Ms. Limata, well, first of all, she can address the board, but I think, one of the things that this board probably doesn't know is the wealth of experience that Ms. Limata has brought and the professionalism that she's brought with her. But I too have spoken with a number of residents. I have attended a number of the Parks Commission meetings, and I have not heard one comment that would lead me to believe that Sonia is not the right one for this position. So, Ms. Limata, good evening.
Good evening. First off, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Scott, for the kind words. Kind of just going to paraphrase what I sent to Supervisor Bennett and then had him share with the board. Within 5 months of starting full-time at Parks and Recreation, I started to reach out to our community through social media, through Facebook, and see what they felt we were missing. What do you want to see in the community? What programs, what special events? And so the holiday tree lighting started by I sent out a poll and said, what event would all of you like to see in this community? And then based on their responses, reached out and started working with the township, with Megan Gilman, and we put on the whole holiday tree lighting, reached out to sponsors, secured, the horse-drawn wagon rides and all the aspects that we had at the tree lighting. And then after that, I wanted to, of course, add more events. In the summer of 2019, we had the Movies on the Mound, which was a free screening of The Sandlot for community members to come out to. And based on what we had at the holiday tree lighting, just the support we had for offering free community events that we didn't really have before, that's why I had the idea to offer again something in the summer for community members to come out to and enjoy. Apart from special events, I've also done new programs. We had a 3-on-3 basketball league that I introduced this summer just to get more kids out at Bicentennial Park. A lot of our programs have been run through the school, and I wanted to try to get more things going on outside and do more things at Bicentennial, like I said. So we started a basketball league out there. We had volleyball going on out there. Just more opportunities for the community to get outside. Especially in the summer. It's a great facility, and I wanted more programs and more opportunities for the kids out there. So for these above stated reasons, of course, I've been working really hard on adding new programs and events, and just really listening to the community to see what they wanted, what they felt we needed more of as far as events and programs and even community education classes. I've worked with numerous people to offer new athletic programs and just any special event or exercise class that people were looking for. So for these above stated reasons is why I'm asking that you offer me a full-time position at the base salary range.
Okay. We have Ms. Niedzwicki, who is our HR specialist here at the township, and one of the things that if we want to, first off, I guess what I want to ask is if any board members have any questions of Ms. Limata. But if we do, I'd like to vet them through Ms. Niedzwicki just so that we don't get into employment practices issues and asking questions that are inappropriate or not allowed. So first off, I guess I'd like to ask the board, do they have any questions of Ms. Limata? I do. And Ms. Niedzwicki, I'd like to ask Ms. Limata a little bit to expound a little bit upon her resume and her background that would lead her to be the right candidate for this position, even though this typically, and according to our hiring policy, is a decision of our township superintendent to hire staff. We've kind of gone around that with the hiring of our director for this department. But anyways, I would like to ask, is that an appropriate question, Ms. Nizwicki?
Yep, she can extend on her background and talk about how she came to this role and what her knowledge is.
Okay. So if you could, I don't know, I've got a copy here if you need it, but
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure
you're
you know
fine.
your resume.
Yeah,
inside and out.
absolutely. So starting out, 2015, I started as the softball operations director for Camp Walt Whitman. A lot of what we did there was, creating lessons plans and working with the entire camp-wide staff on creating a softball program. It was more scheduling and working with other camps to set tournaments. And we did budgeting there as far as what new equipment we would get for the camp and what we needed for the softball program. And I worked with other athletic program directors as to, budgeting for their programs as well and helping them run basketball and lacrosse and the other things we offered there. Another opportunity I had was the outing specialist for Fenton Farms. Working there, I, of course, scheduled the outings for the golf leagues and tournaments that they would hold. We did a lot of, setting up with the customer who wanted to hold a golf outing at Fenton Farms, and we would go through, what detailed in the contract that we had, and setting up fees and just going through line by line everything that we had detailed for them. And then once it was signed by them, then I would go through all the preparation with hiring staff, making sure the event was set up how they had asked it to be, and then just day of running everything, walking around and making sure that everything was going how they had asked it to be, making sure all the staff were in the right place and everything like that. Then the following summer was when I did my first internship with Parks and Recreation. A lot of what I did was help with the baseball and softball tournaments and the leagues running out at the park. Rob, who was the current director or the program director at that time, he had to step away, so I immediately stepped in to run the baseball tournament that we had and the softball tournament, which had 40 teams at the time, so it was a lot of scheduling and already working with people, and this was just in an intern role. So when I stepped in as a full-time role for Parks and Recreation, I already had a lot of the experience that I had done in my internship as far as running the programs and the tournaments and just everything that we had done through that summer. I had a lot of experience with that. Of course, some things came new to me, like the programs that ran in the winter and the spring. Those were new to me when I stepped in, but I learned everything pretty quickly. As far as, it was just a lot more of scheduling, and the special events were new to me. Obviously, those were things that I sought out in the community and wanted to introduce and bring new opportunities when I took on my full-time role at Parks and Recreation.
Talk a bit about your educational background. I see that you majored in sport and entertainment management.
Yep, so I majored in sport and entertainment management from the University of South Carolina. So this helped me a lot in my role because a lot of what we worked in sports management is, budgeting and finance and things that I do in my current role. All of the programs, we have to run cost analysis to make sure it's something worthwhile running, going through and making sure that we're paying the staff an appropriate amount for how much we're taking in for the program. And then also, once I know how much money we're making for these programs, how much money can we spend on equipment and other things based on, based on the budget that we have that we're working with. These are a lot of things that I learned from, taking different courses on budgeting and finance at South Carolina. We also work on marketing a lot, which is how I'm so involved with social media marketing for Grand Blanc Parks and Recreation. A lot of what I learned in school and, just reaching out to the community and making different ways so they can get involved on Facebook, like creating polls and asking them for their input and, feedback that way.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Ms. Limita? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you.
Limita. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Okay, then I'm going to ask for the vote this time. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Opposed.
So we need a show of hands then for,
Why don't you
do a roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, Ms. Lane.
Mr. Mansour,
No.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
No.
Mr. Massey?
What are we voting for?
Put her on full-time at $55,000 a year.
You want to repeat?
Yes, my motion is that we hire Ms. Limata to be the full-time deputy Parks and Rec / program director, and starting her at the salary. The salary, folks, was based on percentages that we've gathered from other communities and likewise states. This isn't just a number we picked out of the hat. It's and this is starting at the lower end of the scale, so there's a lot of room to grow. That's where the $55,000 came from. That's so at a salary of $55,000.
And that's assistant director.
Assistant director, excuse me, not deputy.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. So we're in the middle of a vote right now, so.
Yeah, but I'm a little confused about what he said, because we've made one offer already.
Okay,
We've made an offer,
okay.
so,
Let's continue with the vote and then we'll.
well, I have
we'll
to
go-
ask the attorney, when you make an offer like that, don't you have to, we already have made one offer.
That's true, and then your applicant came to you and said, appreciate the offer, but I'd like to be considered for the lower end of the salary range, and I'd like it to be a permanent job. So your offer was declined, and now you are in the midst of deciding whether you're gonna make a counteroffer.
That should have been the motion. That's what I'm thinking, because well, let me say this, attorney, if I'm wrong, correct me. If I'm wrong, correct me.
Okay.
It's because the audience is sitting here, listen, they think this is the first offer.
Yeah, it's not the first offer.
Yeah, this is not the first offer.
Right.
So
Correct.
she has already been offered more than she was currently making, right?
I think that's probably a fair statement, but again, she's come to you and said, hey, I wanna be paid on the lower end of the range, and I want it to be not an interim position, but I want it to be a traditional at-will position.
So it sounds like there's some questions here first. Maybe. I know
I mean,
we're in the middle of a vote, but.
I didn't understand it because I've always been told that if there's something already on the table, that has to be addressed some kind of way. And the attorney has always taken care of that part, being addressed. And then we move to whatever
Yeah.
is next.
Well, in fairness, Ms. Limita was given an offer as a temporary position at, on the outside of below the recommended range for the wage. She's come to us and asked that we consider that we not make her temporary, and that we also offer the position within the range that was set by both the Parks and Recreation as well as our township. And so that was her request, and Mr. Thomas made a motion to go in that direction, and so that's what this vote is on, is whether or not we want to hire her. Our previous offer, was out there.
Just for, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but for clarification, through you to Attorney Laddie, this is not something that we can go in closed door session, right? This is not a collective I'm sorry, this is not a collective bargaining agreement, so could
not.
you ask the attorney?
It's not a collective bargaining issue, but Mr. Laddie?
It's not, but you have a written attorney opinion from me based on, you have a written attorney opinion from me which can exempt this kind of negotiation from an open session. Doesn't have to though, and quite honestly, you're midway through a vote right now, so.
So we're down to Mr. Massey at this point.
Yeah, because we were told, I mean, I was led to believe that anytime you're talking about a contract, it has to go into an executive session.
That's not entirely true. Collective bargaining agreements very often find themselves in executive session. But you could have a negotiation, whether it be for a contract for a piece of property or services or what have you. If you have a written attorney opinion that gives you legal advice on that proposed agreement. And very often what you'll find is in Grand Blanc Township, we have written attorney opinion based on the terms and conditions of an agreement that we make. And that's what exempts it from the open meeting act.
Okay.
Okay.
So your vote?
Huh?
You didn't vote yet, did I?
I'll vote no.
Okay. Ms. Lane?
No.
And I'm going to say yes, and it's because Sonia has been doing the job very well for however long, and that without Sonia running this operation for the next probably next several months till we bring a director on, she is the only employee that would be working in the office. So. So I see that the board has voted no, that we don't want to go outside of the current agreement that has been, or the current contract that's been offered to Ms. Limita. Mr. Guzak?
Yes, I'd like to go in the executive session to discuss some items
What items?
on the contract.
You want to talk specifically about a counter proposal
Right,
pursuant to my written attorney opinion?
right.
That's his request, I guess, for the closed session.
I'll support that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Thomas? Okay.
Roll call
So that,
vote.
okay, Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Chair?
No.
5 to 2, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, we will,
Mr. Supervisor? I would
Yes.
just ask
We'll
that
see
the
you in
board
4
recuse
hours.
me from attending
Mr. Lehman, I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
I would just ask that the board allow me to not attend the closed session.
I think you have, we need a vote on that, or?
No, I don't think you need a vote, I think consensus can do it, but I would ask you to honor his request and allow me to carry on discussions with your proposed candidate directly.
So what we would do is if we have a counter proposal, we would ask Mr. Laddie to be our representative to make that proposal to Ms. Lehman. Do we have anybody that would disagree with that?
There consensus
Okay.
for that then?
Yes. Mr. Limita, which room would be best for us to use?
I would go to conference room B.
Okay, down the hall.
Yeah, through this
Okay,
one and
we'll
back down.
convene there in approximately 6 minutes.
Thanks, sir.
I will entertain a motion to reconvene the regular board meeting. There's been a motion by Ms. Lane.
Support.
Support by Mr. Atkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, our board has come to a new offer. Mr. Laddie, would you like to comment?
I would, just that we discussed potential terms of an employment agreement with Ms. Limita, and you've authorized me to offer certain conditions or provisions to that contract. I've conveyed them to Ms. Limita, and she's going to provide us with an answer, I think, within the next 24 hours.
Okay.
All right. I make a
All right.
motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I've been asked, it's outside the meeting, but I know Mr. Atkins asked that we convene a special board meeting tomorrow, which we can do without a motion, but the special board meeting to discuss police negotiations, I believe.
Yes.
So we'll convene a meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock, a special meeting for the purpose, of discussing police, our current status on police negotiations. Okay,
See you guys tomorrow.
thank you.